Rebecca Stone walked through the glass doors of Biotech Industries for the last time. Her cardboard box felt heavier with each step. Inside were her research notes, a wilted desk plant, and a coffee mug that said, "Science is magic that works." 20 minutes ago, her boss had called her into his office. 5 minutes after that, she was unemployed. "We need team players, Rebecca," he had said, adjusting his expensive tie. "You refused to adjust the test results. That's not how business works." She had refused because the drug they were testing showed dangerous side effects. Lying about it would have hurt people. But apparently, honesty was not a valued trait at Biotech Industries. The evening air felt cold against her face. Rebecca pulled her jacket tighter and started walking toward the subway station. Her apartment was 40 minutes away by train. She checked her phone. Her bank account showed $300. Rent was due in 2 weeks. Her footsteps echoed in the narrow alley between buildings. This shortcut usually saved her 10 minutes. Tonight, she barely cared about saving time. Her mind was spinning with worries about bills, job applications, and explaining this mess to her parents. A strange sound made her stop. It was like wind chimes mixed with a cat's meow, but deeper, more desperate. Rebecca looked around the dimly lit alley. Nothing seemed unusual at first. Just dumpsters, trash bags, and shadows. Then she heard it again. The sound came from behind a large green dumpster. Every sensible part of her brain screamed to keep walking. Strange sounds in dark alleys never led to good things. But Rebecca had spent her entire career studying living things. Her curiosity was stronger than her fear. She pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness behind the dumpster. What she saw made her gasp. A creature lay crumpled against the brick wall. It was roughly the size of a large dog, but that's where any similarity to Earth animals ended. Its body was covered in scales that shimmered with a faint blue glow. 4 legs ended in claws that looked like they could tear through steel. A long tail curled around its body. 2 wings, torn and bleeding, lay folded against its back. The creature's eyes opened. They were golden and filled with intelligence. Not animal intelligence, something more. Something that made Rebecca's scientific mind race with impossible questions. The creature tried to lift its head and failed. Dark blue blood pooled beneath it. Burns covered its body, the kind that looked like they came from intense heat or energy. Its breathing was shallow and rapid. Rebecca knew she should run. Call the police. Call someone official who dealt with things that shouldn't exist. Instead, she set down her cardboard box and moved closer. "Hey there," she whispered. "I'm not going to hurt you." The creature watched her with those golden eyes. It made a soft sound, almost like a whimper. Rebecca's researcher brain took over. She examined the wounds without touching them. The burns were severe. Some kind of weapon had done this. Something far beyond any technology she knew. The creature was dying. She could see it in the way its scales were losing their glow, in the weakening rhythm of its breath. She thought about her empty apartment, about the first aid kit under her bathroom sink, about the veterinary textbooks she still had from her undergrad days when she thought she might become a vet. This was insane. This was beyond insane. This creature was clearly not from Earth. Keeping it could mean government interrogation, prison, or worse. But leaving it here meant watching something intelligent and aware die alone in an alley. Rebecca made her choice in about 3 seconds. "Okay," she said softly. "I'm going to help you. This might hurt." She took off her jacket and gently wrapped it around the creature. It was heavier than it looked, but she managed to lift it. The creature didn't struggle. It seemed to understand she was trying to help. Getting it to her apartment was the longest 40 minutes of Rebecca's life. She kept the creature hidden in her jacket, holding it close. On the subway, she sat in a corner seat and pretended to sleep. An elderly woman smiled at her. A teenager with headphones ignored her. Nobody suspected she was carrying an alien being. Her apartment building was old and quiet. She climbed 3 flights of stairs without seeing any neighbors. Inside her small studio apartment, she laid the creature on her bed. Under the light, she could see its injuries more clearly. Rebecca spread out everything she had. Hydrogen peroxide bandages, antibiotic ointment, pain medication from her wisdom tooth surgery, a sewing kit, veterinary textbooks, her old biology notes. She worked for hours. The creature stayed still, watching her with those golden eyes. She cleaned the wounds as gently as possible. The burns were strange. They seemed to go deeper than normal burns, like the energy had damaged the creature on a molecular level. Rebecca crushed up pain medication and mixed it with water, dripping it into the creature's mouth. She bandaged what she could. For the wing tears, she used the sewing kit. Her hands shook as she made tiny stitches in the delicate membrane. "I'm sorry," she whispered each time the creature flinched. "I'm so sorry." Dawn light filtered through her window when she finally finished. The creature's breathing had steadied. The glow of its scales was slightly brighter. Rebecca collapsed in her desk chair, exhausted. She had lost her job today. She had no prospects. She had $300 to her name. And now she was harboring what was clearly an extraterrestrial being in her apartment. Rebecca looked at the creature resting peacefully on her bed. Its eyes were closed now. One small paw twitched in what might have been sleep. She smiled despite everything. Whatever happened next, she had done the right thing. In a world that punished honesty and compassion, she had chosen both anyway. The creature's scales pulsed with a gentle blue light, almost like a heartbeat. Rebecca didn't know it yet, but that choice had just changed everything. Sunlight warmed Rebecca's face. She opened her eyes and immediately regretted falling asleep in her desk chair. Every muscle in her body ached. Her neck felt like someone had tied it in knots. Then she remembered. Rebecca jumped up and spun toward her bed. Empty. The creature was gone. Panic flooded through her. Had it died? Had someone taken it? Had she dreamed the whole impossible night? "You have gentle hands for a human." The voice came from near her window. Rebecca turned so fast she knocked over her chair. A woman stood by the window bathed in morning light. She looked human, but not quite. Her skin had a faint shimmer like light on water. Her eyes were the same impossible gold. Long silver hair fell past her shoulders. She wore what looked like armor made from scales that shifted color in the light. "You?" Rebecca breathed. "I am Lyra," the woman said. She moved with fluid grace like a dancer, daughter of Emperor Vorn, princess of the Draconid Empire. "And you saved my life." Rebecca's legs felt weak. She sat down hard on the floor. "You're an alien." "A real alien. I brought an alien to my apartment." Lyra smiled. It was a warm expression that made her seem less intimidating. "I apologize for the deception. My true form would have drawn too much attention. What you saw last night was my natural body. This," she gestured to her human appearance, "is a courtesy for your comfort." "Your natural body," Rebecca repeated slowly. "You mean the dragon thing? That's what you really look like. Dragon is close enough in your language." Lyra walked closer and knelt in front of Rebecca. "Thank you. You had no reason to trust me. You had every reason to fear, yet you chose compassion. That is rare." Rebecca's scientific mind was catching up with the shock. Questions exploded in her thoughts. "How long have you been here? On Earth? Why were you in that alley? What hurt you? How did you heal so fast? Is there a spaceship? Are there more of you?" Lyra laughed. It sounded like bells. So many questions. Good. Your people's curiosity is one of their strengths. She stood and moved to the window, looking out at the city. "I came to Earth on a diplomatic mission. We have been watching your world for many years, deciding if humanity is ready for contact." "Contact," Rebecca whispered. "First contact. Like in the movies." "Not quite like your movies," Lyra said. "We do not invade. We do not conquer. We observe. We look for species with potential, wisdom, kindness, the ability to grow beyond their violent nature. And Earth? Humanity, did we pass the test?" Lyra's expression grew sad. The Draconid Council was preparing to leave Earth alone. Too violent, too divided, too quick to choose fear over understanding. "I came here one last time, hoping to find something that would change their minds." She turned to face Rebecca. "Then assassins found me." "Assassins? Someone tried to kill you?" "There are species in the galaxy who do not wish humanity to join the greater community. They see your potential as a threat. They sent hunters to eliminate me and make it look like your governments did it. This would have started a war. Earth would have been destroyed." Rebecca felt sick. "But you escaped. Barely. My emergency pod malfunctioned. I crashed in your city. The hunters damaged me badly before I could hide my energy signature." Lyra sat on the edge of the bed. "I was dying in that alley. Then you found me. You saw something strange and frightening, and your first instinct was to help." "Anyone would have done the same," Rebecca said quietly. "No." Lyra's voice was firm. "Most would not. We have tested thousands of species across the galaxy. Most fail. They see an injured stranger and they walk away. Or worse, they seek to exploit the opportunity. You asked for nothing, expected nothing. You simply helped because it was right. Rebecca stood up slowly. Her mind was reeling. What happens now? Do you leave? Does Earth just go back to normal? That depends, Lyra said. She walked to the window again. My father's fleet is approaching your solar system. They are searching for me. When they arrive, they will find me here. Safe. Rescued by a human who had lost everything yet still chose kindness. Your father, the Emperor, yes, and he will want to meet you. A distant sound made them both freeze. Rebecca recognized it immediately. Helicopters, multiple helicopters. She rushed to the window. 3 military helicopters circled her building. They found you, Rebecca said. The energy signature thing. Lyra's expression hardened. I am still too weak to leave safely. The healing process is not complete. If your military takes me now, there will be questions I cannot answer, tests I cannot allow. My father's fleet will arrive and find me in captivity. Another war, Rebecca understood. She looked around her tiny apartment frantically. We need to hide you, or get you out. Is there a way to disguise your energy or whatever they're tracking? Not without my ship's equipment. Lyra swayed slightly. The transformation and healing have drained me. I need more time. Loud knocking thundered on Rebecca's door. Federal agents! Open the door! Rebecca's heart hammered. She looked at Lyra. The alien princess looked exhausted, barely staying on her feet. One night of healing wasn't enough. She needed days, maybe weeks. Federal agents! We're coming in! Rebecca made another impossible choice. She grabbed Lyra's hand. My building has a basement. Old steam tunnels from the 1920s. The landlord told me about them when I moved in. If we can get there, maybe the tunnels will block whatever they're tracking. Lyra nodded. Lead the way. The door crashed open just as Rebecca and Lyra slipped out her window onto the fire escape. Shouts followed them. Rebecca led Lyra down the metal stairs, moving as fast as Lyra's weakened state allowed. They reached the alley. More shouts from above. Rebecca found the basement door and yanked it open. The darkness inside swallowed them. She pulled out her phone for light and found the old tunnel entrance behind a pile of boxes. The tunnel was narrow and smelled of mold and rust. They moved through the darkness, Rebecca supporting Lyra as the alien princess stumbled. Behind them, flashlight beams cut through the basement. They walked for what felt like hours but was probably 20 minutes. Finally, Rebecca saw light ahead. Another basement. Another building. They emerged into an old warehouse district. Lyra collapsed against a wall. Her human form flickered, showing glimpses of scales and wings beneath. I cannot hold this shape much longer, she whispered. Rebecca looked around desperately. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. Rebecca Stone? The voice was deep and resonant. Who is this? I am Emperor Vorn of the Draconid Empire. You have my daughter. The city is searching for you both. I am 20 minutes from Earth orbit. Hold on just a little longer, please. The call ended. Rebecca looked at Lyra, who had heard everything. The princess smiled weakly. 20 minutes, Rebecca said. We can do 20 minutes. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Rebecca held Lyra's hand and waited for the impossible to arrive. Every phone in the city started ringing at exactly the same moment. Not just phones. Every screen, every television, every digital billboard. Rebecca watched through the dirty warehouse window as Times Square turned into a wall of the same image. A massive starship hung in orbit above Earth. It wasn't like the spaceships in movies. This looked alive. The hull seemed to breathe. Scales covered its surface, shimmering with colors that didn't have names. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. My father's flagship, Lyra whispered beside her. The Eternal Wing. Rebecca's phone rang again. The same deep voice from before. Miss Stone, look up. She pushed open the warehouse door and stepped outside. The morning sky had changed. What looked like shooting stars descended toward the city. They weren't shooting stars. They were ships. Dozens of them. Smaller than the flagship, but still enormous. People poured out of buildings, pointing at the sky. Some screamed. Some stood frozen. Car alarms blared as the ships cast shadows over the streets. Rebecca held Lyra's arm, supporting the princess as they watched humanity's first real contact with alien life. One ship descended faster than the others. It was heading straight for their location. Rebecca's instinct screamed to run, but Lyra's hand squeezed hers gently. Trust me, the princess said. The ship landed in the empty lot next to the warehouse. It settled with barely a sound, despite being the size of a building. A door opened in its side, flowing apart like liquid metal. Light spilled out and figures emerged. They looked like Lyra, but taller, more imposing. 3 of them wore armor that seemed carved from gemstones. They moved with military precision, scanning the area. Then a 4th figure appeared. He was massive. Even in human form, he stood nearly 7 feet tall. His presence made the air feel heavier. Silver hair fell to his shoulders. His golden eyes found Rebecca immediately, and she felt like she was being measured by something ancient and powerful. Emperor Vorn crossed the distance between them in moments. He looked at Lyra, relief flooding his features. Then he turned to Rebecca and did something she never expected. He bowed. "Rebecca Stone," his voice resonated through the air. "You saved my daughter's life. There is no greater debt in my culture. Name your price and it is yours." Rebecca's mouth went dry. She looked around. Helicopters circled overhead. Police cars screeched to a stop around the lot. People filmed from windows. This moment was being broadcast to the entire planet. "I don't want a price," Rebecca said quietly. She needed help. "That's all." Vorn straightened, studying her face. "No greed, no demands. You truly ask for nothing."
"I ask that you don't judge all of humanity by our worst moments," Rebecca said.
The words came out before she could stop them. "I know we're violent. I know we're divided. But we're also capable of compassion, of growth, of being better than we are." Silence fell over the lot. Even the helicopters seemed to quiet. Vorn's expression was unreadable. "Lyra told me you lost your employment," he finally said, "because you refused to lie, because you chose integrity over personal gain." Rebecca nodded, unsure where this was going. "She told me you spent your last resources saving a stranger you had every reason to fear, that you asked for nothing in return, that when danger came you protected her again." Vorn's voice grew stronger. "The Draconid Council believed humanity was not ready, that your species lacked the wisdom needed to join the galactic community. I see now that we were looking for the wrong thing." He turned to address not just Rebecca but the cameras, the crowds, everyone watching. "We sought unity. We sought peace. We sought perfection. But we forgot that every species begins in chaos. What matters is not where you are but the direction you choose." Vorn looked back at Rebecca. "This woman showed me that direction. One person. One choice. One act of compassion." Lyra stepped forward, stronger now in her father's presence. "I want Rebecca Stone as Earth's official liaison to the Draconid Empire." Murmurs rippled through the crowds. Rebecca's head spun. "Wait," she said. "I'm nobody. I'm just a researcher who got fired. I'm not a diplomat. I'm not qualified for—" "You are precisely who Earth needs," Vorn interrupted. "Not a politician who speaks in careful words. Not a military mind who sees threats in every shadow. A scientist who asked questions. A person who saw a dying stranger and chose kindness." He gestured to his ship. "Come, we have much to discuss. And your world's leaders are attempting to contact me rather urgently." The next hours were a blur. Rebecca found herself aboard the Eternal Wing, standing in a chamber that defied physics. The walls showed space outside as if they didn't exist. Earth hung below them, blue and green and impossibly fragile. Vorn had indeed been contacted by Earth's governments. All of them at once. The confusion and panic were evident even through official channels. He had agreed to meet with representatives at a neutral location. "They will demand answers," one of Vorn's advisors said. "They will demand technology. They will demand advantages over their rivals." "Let them demand," Vorn replied. He looked at Rebecca. "What do you think humanity needs most?" Rebecca thought about her old boss lying about test results. She thought about the news she'd seen, countries fighting over resources while people starved. She thought about brilliant minds wasted on weapons instead of cures. "Time," she said. "We need time to grow up. To get past our petty differences. To realize we're one species on one planet, not 1,000 tribes fighting over scraps. And if we give you that time, what then? Then maybe we become worthy of joining whatever's out there." Rebecca gestured to the stars. "Maybe we become something better than we are." Vorn smiled for the first time. It transformed his severe face into something almost gentle. "Lyra chose well when she crashed near you." "That was random chance," Rebecca said, "was it?" Lyra appeared beside her father, fully healed now. "Or did the universe put me exactly where I needed to be?" Within the day, a meeting was arranged. The United Nations building became the site of humanity's first diplomatic contact with aliens. Rebecca stood beside Vorn as world leaders filed in. Some looked excited. Many looked afraid. All of them looked at Rebecca like she had lost her mind. "Miss Stone," the Secretary General said carefully, "while we appreciate your assistance, surely someone with more experience should handle these negotiations." "She stays," Vorn said flatly, "or I leave." The room went silent. "Rebecca Stone saved my daughter when doing so cost her everything," Vorn continued. "She represents what is best in your species. If you cannot see that, then my counsel was correct. Humanity is not ready." Rebecca felt every eye in the room on her. Yesterday she was unemployed and eating cheap noodles for dinner. Today she was somehow the most important human alive. "The Draconid Empire offers Earth provisional membership in the Galactic Coalition," Vorn announced. "This comes with access to advanced medicine, clean energy, and knowledge beyond your current understanding. In return, you must meet certain requirements over the next 50 years. "What requirements?" a president asked. "Unity. The abolition of weapons designed solely to destroy worlds. A commitment to peaceful exploration." Vorn's voice was firm. "And you must allow Rebecca Stone to serve as your liaison and advocate. She will learn our ways. She will guide humanity through this transition. She will be your voice to thousands of species." The room erupted in arguments. Rebecca watched world leaders debate her fate, her qualifications, her very existence, as if she wasn't standing right there. She looked at Lyra, who smiled encouragingly. Rebecca Stone had lost her job 2 days ago. Now she was being offered a position representing her entire species to the galaxy. She thought about that alley, about the choice to help instead of walk away, about how one moment could change everything. "I'll do it," she said quietly. The room fell silent. "I'll do it," Rebecca repeated louder. "I'll be your liaison. I'll learn everything I can. I'll help humanity grow up and earn its place out there." She looked at the world leaders. "But you have to actually want to change. This isn't about getting new technology to fight each other with. It's about becoming better than we are." Vorn's expression showed something like pride. The Secretary General cleared his throat. "Then I suppose we have much to discuss." Outside the windows, more Draconid ships appeared in orbit. Not weapons, gifts, medical facilities, research stations. A space elevator began growing from the ocean, reaching toward the stars. Humanity's future had arrived, delivered on the wings of dragons, and it had all started because one unemployed researcher chose compassion over fear. 3 weeks after first contact, someone tried to kill Rebecca Stone. She was leaving the temporary embassy building when the shot rang out. Glass exploded. Lyra moved faster than human eyes could follow, her body shifting mid-stride. Scales erupted across her skin. Wings burst from her back. She wrapped herself around Rebecca as 3 more shots echoed through the plaza. People screamed and ran. Security forces swarmed the area. Rebecca lay on the ground, Lyra's armored form covering her completely. She couldn't see anything except shimmering scales inches from her face. "Are you hurt?" Lyra's voice was different in this form, deeper, more resonant. "I don't think so," Rebecca managed. Her ears rang from the gunfire. Her heart felt like it would explode. More security arrived. Draconid guards materialized from nowhere, moving in coordinated patterns. Within minutes, they had the shooter, a man in his 40s, screaming about aliens and the end of humanity. His eyes held the wild look of someone who truly believed he was a hero. Lyra slowly shifted back to human form, checking Rebecca for injuries. "Nothing." "You are unharmed." Rebecca sat up, shaking. Around them, the plaza was chaos. Police cordoned off the area. News cameras captured everything. She had just survived an assassination attempt broadcast live to the world. That evening, the United Nations emergency session was tense. Representatives from every nation filled the assembly hall. Rebecca sat between Vorn and Lyra, feeling small and exhausted. "This attack proves the danger," a delegate argued. "There are factions who will never accept alien contact. This experiment puts everyone at risk." "One fanatic does not speak for humanity," another countered. "One? There have been 17 attacks on the embassy in 3 weeks. Protests in every major city. Religious leaders calling this the end times." The first delegate pointed at Rebecca. "And this woman has no training, no diplomatic experience. She's a liability." Rebecca wanted to sink into her chair and disappear. The shooter has been questioned. Vorn's voice cut through the arguments. He acted alone. But his fear is not unique. Many of your people see us as a threat. This is natural. Expected. It does not change our offer. Then perhaps the offer should be reconsidered, someone suggested carefully. Vorn stood. His presence commanded immediate silence. Let me tell you about the Arathi Collective. They are a species that achieved space travel 3,000 years ago. They are brilliant engineers, master strategists. They control 12 star systems and have a military that could crush Earth like an insect. The assembly hall was completely quiet now. They oppose humanity's inclusion in the coalition, Vorn continued. They believe humans are too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous. They have been watching your response to first contact, and they are gathering evidence to support their position. What kind of evidence? The Secretary General asked. The protests, the attacks, the continued wars on your own planet, the nations that see our technology as weapons to claim rather than gifts to share. Vorn's golden eyes swept the room. They will present this evidence to the Galactic Council. They will argue that humanity should be quarantined, left to either destroy itself or evolve in isolation, and they will likely succeed. Rebecca felt sick. 3 weeks ago, humanity didn't know aliens existed. Now they might lose their chance at the stars because some people were afraid of change. Unless, Lyra spoke up, humanity can prove the Arathi wrong. How? Rebecca asked. In 1 month, the Galactic Coalition holds its annual assembly. Representatives from 500 species gather to vote on new members and settle disputes. The Arathi will formally challenge Earth's provisional membership. Lyra looked at Rebecca. You will have to defend humanity before the entire coalition. The weight of those words pressed down on Rebecca like a physical thing. Defend humanity in front of 500 alien species. In 1 month, I can't do that, she whispered. I'm not a speaker. I'm not trained for this. No, Vorn agreed. You are not. Which is why you will come to Ashara Prime, our home world. You will attend the Galactic Academy. You will learn diplomacy, xenobiology, and coalition law. You will meet representatives from other species. And in 1 month, you will speak for your entire planet. Rebecca wanted to say no, wanted to tell them this was too much. She was just one person who had helped an injured stranger. She wasn't meant for this, but she remembered the shooter's face, the hatred in his eyes, the fear. If she gave up now, people like him would define humanity's future. Fear and hatred would win. Okay, she said quietly. I'll go. The next day, Rebecca boarded a Draconid ship for the first time as a passenger, not a refugee. Her parents had called, terrified and proud in equal measure. Her few friends thought she was insane. Social media was split between calling her a hero and a traitor. The journey to Ashara Prime took 3 days in faster-than-light travel. Rebecca spent most of it staring out viewports at impossible sights, nebulas that looked like paintings, stars being born, a space station the size of a moon. Ashara Prime appeared on the screens as they approached. The planet was beautiful, blue oceans and green continents like Earth, but with purple clouds and cities that glowed with bioluminescent architecture. Ships moved around it in organized patterns, hundreds of different designs from hundreds of different species. Welcome to the center of the Galactic Coalition, Lyra said beside her. The Academy was located on a floating island above the capital city, literally floating. Rebecca didn't understand the science yet, but the massive landmass hung in the air, connected to the ground by shimmering energy bridges. Inside the Academy, Rebecca met her fellow students. There were beings from species she couldn't even describe. A creature made of crystalline structures that communicated through light patterns. A species that looked like floating jellyfish but possessed intelligence that made human geniuses look simple. A race of four-armed warriors whose culture was built around honor and combat. And they all stared at Rebecca Stone, the human, like she was a curiosity at best and a threat at worst. Humans, one of the crystalline beings pulsed in translated light. The species that still wages war on itself. How amusing. Rebecca bit back a dozen angry responses. She was here to learn, not fight. Her instructor was a being named Elder Tesh, from a species that looked vaguely reptilian, but with 6 legs and 3 eyes. Tesh had been teaching diplomacy for 2 centuries. The Orathi challenge is serious, Tesh explained in their first private session. They will present evidence of human violence. They will show your wars, your weapons, your history of genocide and slavery. They will argue that admitting humanity endangers the entire coalition. How do I counter that? Rebecca asked. I can't lie about our history. We did all those things. No, Tesh agreed. You cannot lie. But you can provide context. Every species in the coalition has a violent past. The Draconids themselves nearly destroyed their own planet in ancient wars. The question is not whether humanity has been violent. The question is whether humanity can grow beyond that violence. Over the following weeks, Rebecca learned faster than she thought possible. She studied coalition law, alien psychology, diplomatic protocols. She met with representatives from dozens of species, learning their cultures and customs. Some were friendly. Many were skeptical. A few were openly hostile. The Orathi representative, a being named Commander Drex, made his position clear when they met. Your species is a cancer, he said bluntly. Drex looked almost human, but with gray skin and black eyes that reflected no light. You multiply without control. You consume resources without thought for tomorrow. You fight amongst yourselves even as you stand at the threshold of the stars. You will bring nothing but chaos to the coalition. We're learning, Rebecca replied, keeping her voice steady. We're changing, are you? Drex smiled. It was not a friendly expression. 3 days ago, 2 of your nations exchanged military strikes over a border dispute. While you are here learning to play diplomat, your people are killing each other over imaginary lines on a map. Rebecca had heard about the strikes. It had made her physically ill. How could she defend humanity when they kept proving the critics right? Change takes time, she said weakly. The galaxy does not have time for your species to maybe grow up, Drex replied. In 1 week I will present my evidence to the full coalition. I will show them exactly what humanity is, and they will vote to quarantine your planet for the next 1,000 years. By the time you are allowed contact again, everyone you know will be dead. He walked away, leaving Rebecca standing alone in the academy corridor. That night, she called home using the quantum communication system. Her mother answered, and Rebecca broke down crying for the first time since this started. I can't do this, Mom. I'm not enough. Humanity isn't ready. Her mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Rebecca, do you remember why you became a scientist? To help people. And did you stop helping when biotech fired you? No, I helped Lyra. Because that's who you are. You see someone in need and you help? That's all you need to do next week. Show them who we can be, not who we are now. Show them that humanity has people like you in it. People who choose compassion even when it costs everything. After the call ended, Rebecca sat alone in her quarters on an alien world, light years from home. The Grand Assembly Chamber was designed to make visitors feel small. Rebecca stood at its entrance, staring at the impossible space before her. The chamber was a sphere, easily a mile in diameter. Seating ringed the interior walls in concentric circles, rising up and curving overhead until they met at the top. Beings from 500 species filled those seats, creating a wall of eyes, sensors, and attention all focused on the speaking platform at the center. That platform was where Rebecca would stand in less than an hour. Breathe, Lyra said beside her. You have prepared for this. Rebecca's hands trembled. 4 weeks of intensive training had taught her many things. She knew coalition law. She understood diplomatic protocol. She could identify 300 different species on site. But none of that made her feel ready for this moment. The Orathi presentation was devastating, she whispered. Drex had spoken the day before, showing 2 hours of humanity's worst moments. Wars, genocides, environmental destruction. The images had been brutal and undeniable. He showed truth, Vorn said from her other side, but not the whole truth. That is your task. A chime echoed through the chamber. Time to begin. Rebecca walked to the platform, her footsteps echoing in the enormous space. The platform rose slowly, lifting her to the center of the sphere. 500 species watched her, judged her, waited for her to fail. The Arbiter, an ancient being from a species so old no one remembered their original name, spoke in a voice that resonated through translation devices. Rebecca Stone of Earth, you stand here to counter the Orathi challenge. You may present your defense of humanity. Rebecca looked up at the tiers of alien beings. She had prepared a speech. 45 minutes of carefully crafted arguments. Statistics showing humanity's progress. comparisons to other species' development curves. Elder Tesh had helped her write it. It was perfect. She decided not to use it. "I'm not going to lie to you," Rebecca said. Her voice was amplified throughout the chamber. "Commander Drek showed you the truth yesterday. Humanity has been violent. We have been cruel. We have hurt each other and our planet. Everything he showed you was real." Murmurs rippled through the assembled species. This was not how a defense was supposed to start. "But let me tell you something else that's real," Rebecca continued. 4 weeks ago, I lost my job. I lost it because I refused to lie. My company wanted me to falsify medical research results. People would have been hurt if I had obeyed. So I refused, and they fired me. She paused, gathering her thoughts. That same night, I found Princess Lyra dying in an alley. I had just lost my income. I had $300 to my name. Rent was due in 2 weeks. Every practical part of my brain told me to walk away. Call someone official. Protect myself. But I didn't. I took her home. I used my last resources to save her life. Not because I expected a reward. Not because I knew she was a princess. I did it because she needed help. Rebecca looked directly at the Arathi section. Commander Drek says humanity is defined by our worst moments. That our violence and cruelty prove we're not ready. But I'm here because of a moment of compassion. One human, making one choice, changed the entire trajectory of first contact. One person does not represent a species, Drex called out. You are an exception, not the rule. Am I? Rebecca pulled out her tablet. In the 4 weeks since first contact, there have been protests on Earth. Violence, fear. Commander Drex is right about that. But let me show you something else. She activated the display and holographic images filled the chamber. This is a medical clinic in Somalia. The doctors there heard about Draconid healing technology. They sent a message asking if it could help children dying from diseases we haven't cured yet. They didn't ask for weapons. They asked for help saving lives. Another image. This is a group of engineers in India. They designed a water purification system using principles from publicly released Draconid science. They're giving it away for free to villages that don't have clean water. More images. Scientists in 50 countries collaborating on climate research. Teachers redesigning curricula to include xenobiology. Artists creating work celebrating first contact. Aid organizations working to end poverty before we reach the stars, because they're ashamed of what aliens might think if we don't. Rebecca's voice grew stronger. You want to know what defines humanity? We are capable of terrible things, but we're also capable of choosing to be better. Millions of humans looked at first contact and asked, how do we become worthy of this? That's not a species that's dangerous. That's a species that's trying to grow. Pretty words, Drex interrupted. But your planet still has active war zones. Your nations still threaten each other. You still have weapons designed to destroy cities. Yes, Rebecca agreed. We do, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But every species in this chamber has a violent history. The Draconids nearly destroyed themselves in ancient wars. The Talari went through 3 civil wars before achieving unity. Even the Arathi had a period of planetary conflict that lasted 2 centuries. She looked around the chamber. The difference is that you've had thousands of years to grow past your violent phase. You're asking humanity to skip that entire process and be perfect right now. That's not fair. That's not how development works, the Arbiter spoke. The concern is not merely that humanity is violent now. It is that your violence could spread to the Coalition, that admitting your species could endanger others. Rebecca took a deep breath. This was the heart of the matter. Then test us, she said. Don't quarantine Earth, don't abandon us, test us. The Coalition has protocols for provisional membership. Use them. Give us clear goals to achieve unity, disarmament, environmental restoration. Set a timeline. 50 years. 100 years. Whatever is fair, and if we fail to meet those goals, then you can quarantine us. And if humanity becomes a threat during that time, another species asked. Then you have 500 species with advanced technology and millions of years of development, Rebecca replied. We're one planet. One species barely reaching our own moon. If we betray the Coalition's trust, you can stop us. But if we succeed, you gain an ally, a species that chose to be better. That's worth the risk, isn't it? Silence filled the chamber. Rebecca felt sweat running down her back. She had said everything she could think to say. The human makes an emotional argument, Drex said dismissively. But emotion is not evidence. Humanity's pattern of behavior suggests they will fail any test you give them. Perhaps, A new voice spoke. Rebecca turned to see one of the crystalline beings who had mocked her when she first arrived at the academy. But I must confess something. I have studied human history over the past weeks. I was looking for evidence to support the Arathi position. Instead, I found something unexpected. The being's light patterns shifted. Humans have a concept they call second chances. It appears throughout their philosophy, their justice systems, their stories. The idea that failure is not final, that beings can choose to change, to learn, to become better than they were. This is not common among coalition species. Most of us see development as linear. Humans see it as cyclical. Fall down, stand up, try again, another species spoke up. I too have researched Earth. Their scientific progress in the last century is remarkable, comparable to some coalition species with much longer lifespans. Their art is crude but emotionally sophisticated. Their capacity for individual variation is extraordinary. I find the Arathi assessment incomplete. More voices joined in. Some supported the Arathi position. Others questioned it. The debate raged for hours. Rebecca stood on the platform exhausted, watching 500 species argue about humanity's fate. Finally, the arbiter called for order. We will vote. But first, there is a traditional test for disputed membership cases. The trial of worth. Rebecca Stone of Earth, are you familiar with this protocol? Rebecca's heart sank. She had read about it. The trial of worth was a simulation, a test of intelligence, morality, and adaptability. It was designed by the oldest coalition species and was brutally difficult. I am, she said quietly. Then you will undergo the trial. The results will inform the final vote. Do you accept? Rebecca looked at Lyra, who nodded encouragement. At Vorn, whose expression was unreadable. At the hundreds of alien species waiting for her answer. I accept, Rebecca said. The chamber dissolved around her. Suddenly she was standing on a planet she didn't recognize. Cities burned in the distance. The simulation had begun. A voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. A plague threatens this world. There is enough cure for either the northern population or the southern population, but not both. The north has more people but less economic value. The south has fewer people but controls essential resources. Choose. Rebecca's mind raced. This was a classic moral dilemma. Utilitarian versus practical. Save more lives or save the infrastructure needed to rebuild. Either choice would doom millions, no, she said aloud. The voice seemed surprised. You must choose. The plague spreads. Delay means both populations die. Then I need more information. What causes the plague? Can we slow its spread? What resources does each population have? Are there any natural immunities?
Can we synthesize more cure using local materials?
The parameters are set. You must choose between the two options provided. Those aren't the only options, Rebecca insisted. There's always another way. Humans don't accept no-win scenarios. We change the rules. She closed her eyes, thinking. In the simulation, she was given authority over the cure distribution. That meant she had resources, personnel, equipment. She started issuing commands. Redirect half the cure to each population. It won't save everyone, but it gives both groups a chance. Use the responders to identify natural immunity markers in survivors. Synthesize a partial cure using local biological materials. Implement quarantine protocols. Use the northern population's numbers for rapid testing of cure variants. Use the southern population's resources to manufacture additional treatment. Connect the populations. Make them work together on solving the problem instead of competing for survival. The simulation shifted. Her solution was imperfect. People still died. But far fewer than the original scenario had demanded. And the two populations, forced to cooperate, began sharing resources and knowledge. The voice returned. This scenario has been presented to 4,000 candidates over 2,000 years. You are the seventh to reject the binary choice. You are the first to find a solution that saves significant populations from both groups. How did you know this was possible? Rebecca opened her eyes. She was back in the assembly chamber. 500 species stared at her. Because humans don't give up, she said simply. We fail, we fall, but we keep trying. We keep looking for another way. That's what we do. The arbiter was silent for a long moment. Then it spoke. The trial of worth is complete. We will now vote on humanity's provisional membership in the Galactic Coalition. Those in favor? Rebecca held her breath as lights began appearing throughout the chamber. Each species voting. Green for yes. Red for no. The votes tallied slowly. It was close. So close Rebecca felt dizzy watching. When the final count appeared, green outnumbered red by exactly 12 votes. Humanity had been accepted. Rebecca's legs gave out. She sank to the platform floor as cheers and protests erupted throughout the chamber. Lyra was suddenly beside her, pulling her into a hug. "You did it. You actually did it." "We did it," Rebecca whispered. Humanity did it. She had defended her species before the galaxy and won. But the real work was just beginning. 1 year after saving a dying dragon in an alley, Rebecca Stone stood at the window of her apartment in the diplomatic quarter of Ashara Prime. Earth hung in the sky above her, a holographic display showing her home planet in real time. From here she could see the changes. The space elevator gleamed like a silver thread connecting Earth to orbit. Draconid medical stations orbited each continent, providing healing technology that had already eliminated 12 major diseases. Energy satellites beamed clean power to ground stations, beginning the long process of shutting down fossil fuel plants. Ships moved between Earth and the coalition worlds, carrying students, researchers, and diplomats in both directions. But it wasn't perfect. It was far from perfect. Rebecca's tablet chimed with another news alert. Riots in Geneva over the coalition's requirement that Earth dismantle nuclear weapons. 3 nations were refusing to comply, claiming they needed deterrence against each other. The coalition deadline was 6 months away and Earth was nowhere near ready. A knock at her door pulled her from the window. She opened it to find Lyra holding 2 cups of something that smelled like cinnamon and electricity. "You are worrying again," Lyra said, handing Rebecca one of the cups. "I'm always worrying," Rebecca replied. "It's my job now." They sat together on the balcony. Below them, the capital city of Ashara Prime glowed with bioluminescent architecture. Beings from 100 different species moved through the streets. A year ago, seeing this would have blown Rebecca's mind. Now it was just another evening. "Tell me," Lyra prompted. Rebecca sighed. "The disarmament is going badly. The unity talks are stalled. We have 48 more requirements to meet in the next 49 years, and we're struggling with the first ones. Sometimes I wonder if humanity really can do this." "Do you remember the trial of worth?" Lyra asked. "Of course. I think about it every day. You rejected an impossible choice and found a third option. Earth is doing the same thing now. The path will not be neat. It will not be clean. But you will find a way," Lyra smiled. "You always do." Rebecca wanted to believe that. But the weight of representing an entire species never got lighter. Her tablet chimed again. This time it was a call from Earth. Secretary General Martinez appeared on the screen looking exhausted. "Rebecca, we need your help. The holdout nations are threatening to leave the Unified Contact Program. They say the coalition's requirements are too strict, that we're giving up our sovereignty." Rebecca's heart sank. Without unified participation, Earth's provisional membership would be revoked. "What do you need me to do?" "Talk to them. You're the only human who has credibility with both the coalition and the skeptics. If anyone can bridge this gap, it's you." The call ended and Rebecca stared at her tablet. Another impossible task, another moment where everything balanced on her shoulders. "I need to go home," she said to Lyra. They took a fast ship back to Earth. The journey that had taken 3 days a year ago now took 6 hours, thanks to improved Draconid drives. Rebecca spent the flight preparing arguments, discarding them, and preparing new ones. Nothing felt adequate. Earth looked different from orbit than it had a year ago. Cleaner. The atmospheric haze had decreased as pollution controls improved. Lights from the new power stations dotted the night side. But the borders between nations were still visible, still defended, still sources of conflict. The meeting took place in a neutral location, a space station humanity had built in partnership with Draconid engineers. Representatives from the 3 holdout nations sat across from Rebecca. Their expressions ranged from skeptical to hostile. "Miss Stone," the representative from one nation began, "you ask us to disarm while our enemies remain armed. You ask us to trust in coalition protection when we barely understand coalition politics. You ask us to give up sovereignty we fought centuries to achieve." "I'm not asking you to give up anything," Rebecca replied. "I'm asking you to transform it. Sovereignty doesn't mean isolation. It means having a voice, a choice, a place at the table." "Easy words for someone living on an alien world," another representative said bitterly. "You've been gone for months. You don't see the fear on our streets, the uncertainty, People are scared that humanity is losing itself. Rebecca felt a flash of anger but pushed it down. I left my entire life behind to do this job. I live light years from home. I spend every day negotiating with species that see humans as children playing with matches. I get death threats weekly from people who think I'm betraying humanity. Don't tell me I don't understand fear. The room went quiet. But I also see the bigger picture. Rebecca continued, her voice softer. I see species that nearly destroyed themselves learning to work together. I see civilizations that were enemies for millennia, finding common ground. I see what humanity could become if we can get past our fear. She pulled up images on the conference room display. This is a child in Sudan who would have died from a preventable disease. Draconid medicine saved her. This is a village in Bangladesh that has clean water for the first time in history. This is a research team curing cancer using coalition technology. These things are real. They're happening now. But they only continue if Earth stays unified. At what cost? The third representative asked. We become dependent on alien technology. Subservient to alien rules. No, Rebecca said firmly. We become partners. The coalition isn't a government. It's a framework, a way for different species to cooperate without losing their identity. Look at the Draconids. They still have their own culture, their own government, their own way of life. They just chose to share it with others instead of defending it in isolation. She stood and walked to the window. Earth filled the view, beautiful and fragile. We've spent our entire history drawing lines on maps and fighting over them. Lines between nations, between religions, between ideologies. The coalition is asking us to do something we've never done before. See ourselves as one species instead of 1,000 tribes. That's easy to say, one representative muttered. Harder to do. I know, Rebecca agreed. I'm not saying it will be easy. I'm saying it's necessary, because if we don't do this, we'll be quarantined, left alone while the rest of the galaxy moves forward. And in 1,000 years, when they finally check on us again, we'll either be extinct or still fighting the same stupid wars over the same stupid lines. She turned back to face them. You asked what it costs to join the coalition. Let me tell you what it costs to stay isolated. It costs us everything we could become, every cure we could develop, every world we could explore, every friendship we could make with species we haven't even met yet. That's the real price, and I think it's too high. The meeting lasted for hours. Arguments went in circles. Old grudges and fears surfaced repeatedly. But slowly, gradually, Rebecca saw the representatives begin to shift. Not agreeing, not yet, but listening, considering. When the meeting finally ended, one representative approached her privately. I cannot make promises. My government is divided. But I will take your words back to them. I will try. That's all I ask, Rebecca said, exhausted. Just try. She returned to her temporary quarters on the station. Lyra was waiting with food and a sympathetic expression. How did it go? The princess asked. I don't know, Rebecca admitted. Maybe I got through to them. Maybe I didn't. I feel like I'm trying to hold water in my hands. No matter how carefully I try, it keeps slipping away. Change always feels that way, Lyra said. My people nearly destroyed ourselves before we learned to work together. The process took centuries and cost millions of lives. You are trying to help humanity skip that terrible learning period. The fact that it is difficult does not mean you are failing. Rebecca wanted to believe that, but the doubt was always there, whispering in the back of her mind. The next morning, she decided to take a walk. Not on the station, on Earth. She took a shuttle to New York, to the city where everything had started. The alley was still there, still narrow and dark, though cleaner than it had been. Rebecca stood where she had found Lyra, remembering that night. The fear, the choice, the moment that changed everything. I wondered if you would come here. Lyra's voice came from behind her. Rebecca turned. The princess stood at the alley entrance in her human form, backlit by streetlights. Do you ever regret it? Rebecca asked. If your escape pod had crashed somewhere else. If someone else had found you. Maybe someone diplomatic, someone who knew what they were doing. Lyra walked closer. I regret nothing. You were exactly who was needed, not because you were perfect, because you cared. She gestured to the alley. That night you had every reason to protect yourself, but you saw a stranger in pain and you chose compassion. That is what changed my father's mind. Not speeches, not diplomacy, simple kindness. It doesn't feel simple anymore, Rebecca said. Because you are trying to teach an entire species what came naturally to you. Lyra put a hand on Rebecca's shoulder. But it is working. Slowly. Imperfectly. But it is working. As if to prove her point, a commotion drew their attention to the street. A group of children had gathered around something. Rebecca and Lyra moved closer to see. A small alien creature sat in the middle of the circle. It looked like a six-legged cat made of blue crystal. One leg was damaged and it made distressed chirping sounds. The children were arguing about what to do. "We should call someone," one child said nervously. "It might be dangerous," another warned. Then a girl, maybe 8 years old, stepped forward. She knelt beside the creature, moving slowly and gently. "It's okay," she said softly. "I'm going to help you." She pulled off her jacket and carefully wrapped it around the injured creature. The others watched, uncertain. Then another child stepped forward to help. Then another. Within minutes, the children had fashioned a makeshift stretcher and were carrying the creature toward a nearby embassy building. Rebecca felt tears in her eyes. She looked at Lyra, who was smiling. "You see," the princess said. "They learned. One person at a time, one choice at a time, just like you did." Later, back on the station, Rebecca received word that the holdout nations had agreed to participate in the disarmament program. It wasn't a complete victory. The timeline would need adjustment. There would be compromises and setbacks. But they had agreed to try. Earth's journey to the stars was messy and complicated. But it was happening. Rebecca stood once more at her apartment window, looking at Earth. She thought about a question Vorn had asked her months ago. "Do you regret losing your old life?" She had given him a diplomatic answer then. But now, alone with her thoughts, she considered the question honestly. She had lost her job, her apartment, her old routines and certainties. She had taken on responsibility that terrified her. She faced challenges that seemed impossible. She represented a species that constantly disappointed and occasionally inspired her. But she had also discovered what humanity could become. She had made friends across the stars. She had helped bridge civilizations. She had shown that compassion was not weakness but strength. Rebecca smiled at the hologram of Earth. "No," she said aloud to the empty room. "I don't regret a thing." On Earth, a child carried an injured alien to safety, having heard the story of a woman who did the same. In orbit, ships from a dozen species worked together to build humanity's first deep space vessel. In meeting rooms across the planet, former enemies negotiated ways to work together instead of against each other. It was slow. It was hard. But humanity was growing up. And it had all started because one unemployed researcher chose compassion over fear in a dark alley. Rebecca Stone had lost her job but saved a dragon. The next day, luxury starships came for her, and she had helped save humanity in return. The story was far from over. There would be more challenges, more setbacks, more moments of doubt. But Rebecca was no longer the frightened woman who had lost everything. She was Earth's voice to the stars, a bridge between worlds, a reminder that the best of humanity was worth fighting for. Outside her window, the galaxy waited, full of wonders and dangers, full of species who had been where humanity was now and survived, full of possibilities that humans were only beginning to imagine. Rebecca finished her drink and pulled up her schedule for tomorrow. Meetings with coalition representatives, a speech to the Earth Assembly, negotiations over technology transfers, the same endless work that never seemed to make a dent. But somewhere on Earth, a child would make a choice, to help instead of harm, to include instead of exclude, to be kind when it would be easier to be cruel. And that child would be one more step toward humanity's future among the stars. Rebecca smiled and got back to work. After all, she had a species to help raise. And the galaxy was watching,